Course 3, Lesson 7. This is all about rates and average, and then we're also going to look at measures of central tendency, things like mean, median, mode, and range. So your goal is to be able to form rates and unit rates, solve rate problems, find the average of the set of numbers, and determine which measure of central tendency works for a certain situation. So when we first look at rates, we are talking about a division relationship between two numbers. A lot of times we see this as a unit rate, so we are thinking of things like miles per hour, 24 miles per gallon, 32 feet per second, 15 cents per 1 ounce. The important thing here to remember is that it's always per 1 hour and per 1 gallon, okay? Things like that. So we need to make sure that whenever we are finding a unit rate, it's always going to be something like 65 miles over 1 hour. Okay, so let's look at some other things. When we have equations like this, when we're looking at rate problems, we're talking about a lot of times hours times the rate gives us the number of miles, or gallons times the miles per gallon gives us the number of miles. When we talked about converting measures, we started looking at the fractions that we can use and converting those. So let's say we have 24 miles for 1 gallon. And I know that at the store I bought, let's say, 15 gallons of gas. Well, as we can see, those gallons are going to go away and we find how many miles we get. Okay, so by using those fractions, we can continue to cross out certain measures so that we can see what is left over. Let's try one. So driving at an average speed of 55 miles per hour, so we write that down, 55 miles for 1 hour. And we know that we are going to go for 6 hours on this road trip. So I'm going to multiply by 6 hours. And we see that our hours go away and we figure out how many miles. And I believe that's 330 miles. Okay, so we see how far we can go just by setting up our fractions and multiplying across like fractions work. Let's try another one. Traveling at an average rate of 58 miles per hour, how long would it take for a car to travel 20 miles? So for this one, we set it up just slightly different. Before, we had our distance equaling our rate multiplied by how much time we have. But here, we know the distance, 20 miles. We know the rate, 58 miles over 1 hour. But we don't know the time. We don't know the time. So we need to figure out a way to figure out the time. And by doing that, we can actually divide to get t alone. So we're going to divide by 58 miles over 1 hour. So we do that over here. But remember, when we're dividing by a fraction, we're actually multiplying by its reciprocal. So 1 hour over 58 miles. And by doing that, we see that our miles go away and we will figure out our time in hours just by taking 20 and dividing by 58. 20 over 58 hours. We know that reduces, and we can also divide it to get the actual decimal as far as how many hours. The other part of this lesson is about mean, median, mode, and range. Okay, what are these? So mean, we are talking about the average. And how we set it up is this. We add up all the numbers. So let's say we have all of these numbers. We'll add 4 plus 4 plus 5 plus 4 plus 4 plus 3. And we will get 24. Then with the average, we divide by how many numbers you added. And so we see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers. So we would take 24 and divide by 6. That tells us that we get a mean, an average of 4. Okay, so the average. Median, on the other hand, we could have two different situations happen. Median means that we have the middle number. And our two situations are this. If we have an odd amount of numbers, it actually makes it a little easier because we take our numbers, write the numbers in order, so 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 5, and we count down from each side to find the middle. What this looks like is I'm going to take one from the end, one from the other end, one from the end, one from the other end, all the way in until I see I have one number left, 4. With an odd number, we will always get one number in the middle. But if, by chance, we have an even number of numbers, like this, we write the numbers in order, we cross them out, but we see that when we get down to this 4 and 5, if I cross them out, there would be nothing left, so we circle them both. But both 4 and 5 are not my median. What we do is that we take the mean of those two numbers. So we add 4 and 5 to get 9, and we divide by 2. We find the average of those two numbers, and we see that the median is actually 4.5. Next, we have the mode, the number that is the most common. All right? Basically, we just count how many times a number appears. So in this case, we have the numbers 3, 4, and 5 coming up. Well, 3 comes up only once. So we have our numbers and we have the times they occur. Okay, so 3 comes up once, 4 comes up 4 times, and 5 comes up only once. So we would say that our mode is 4 because it comes up the most. Now, a couple of things to note here about mode. If by chance we have a list like this, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Well, all of them come up the exact same amount of times. They all come up once. So we would say there's actually no mode. Even if I had 2 2s, 2 3s, 2 4s, 2 5s, and 2 6s, they all come up the same amount of times, so we say there is no mode. But let's say this. How about if we have 2, 2, 3, 4, 4, and 5? Well, we see that the 2's come up twice, and the 4's come up twice, but the 3 and the 5 only come up once. Well, we would say that our mode is both 2 and 4, because they come up more than the rest of the numbers. Okay, so a little confusing sometimes, and it doesn't always get explained, but this is how we look at them. If they all come up the same amount of times, we have no mode. But if we have some numbers that come up more than others, those are going to be our mode. Range. Simplest one of them all. The difference between the greatest value and the least value. So we have all these numbers, 3, 4, and 5. We take the largest 5 and subtract the lowest 3 to get a range of 2. Another example is this. We have numbers from 38 all the way up to 65. So we subtract 65 minus 38 is 27. And we find our range. Okay, so this is a good practice for you. So we have all of the numbers and they are listed out. So if we have them, right now we actually have them from greatest to least, at least they're in order. So let's find the median. We count down from the sides and we see that we have 2 left. So we find the average of those two, 9 plus 8 divided by 2. So we would say, all right, 9 plus 8 is 17 divided by 2. Well, that is just 8.5. So our median is 8.5. Let's do the mode. Okay, we have 1 10, 3 9s, 2 8s, 1 6, and 1 5. So 9 is definitely the one that comes up the most. Range. Okay, this one, biggest is 10, smallest is 5. So we can say we have a range of 5 once we find the difference. And lastly, the hardest one, let's find the mean. Okay, I'm going to pair these up. So in those two we get 19, here we get 18, here we get 16, and here we get 11. And I'm going to do it one more time. Let's pair them up again. So let's pair up 19 and 11, since those can give us a whole number of 30. 18 and 16, well, when we do that, 18 and 16, that gives us 34. And we add those up and get a total of 64. Well, let's see how many numbers we had. We added all of them up and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers. So we do 64 divided by 8, which is 8. So our mean is 8. Okay? So all of those can happen with a set of numbers. Okay? So in this example, and if you want to, just pause the video and you can figure out the mean, median, and mode of this set of data. But I will go ahead and tell you what they are after we were to add them up and divide by 12, the number we have. The mean comes up as 190. The median comes up as 186, and the mode is 175. Now in this case, because we're talking about amounts of money, talking about home prices, there are certain situations where we would use these. So for the mean, we see that it's 190. Well, that actually seems kind of high for this set of data because we have lots of examples that are under 190. Okay, quite a few. Quite a few of the lists are under 190. So we can see that the mean actually is a little higher. That's because of those bigger numbers are actually skewing the information a little bit. Okay? So when we have information that has some big numbers, sometimes the mean doesn't actually show the full picture. So if we have outliers, mean is not actually the best choice of measure of central tendency. But median is. When we have some bigger numbers like 219, 208, 209, that might skew the information and kind of make it different than actually is. Median is the better choice because it tells us a better picture of the actual information. Sometimes mode is the best, but it doesn't occur very much, mostly when the mode actually matches up with the median. Okay, so these are some examples. If you want, you can also go through these different practice examples to work on rates and average. Okay, so A, B, C, D are some good examples of these type of rate problems along with measures of central tendency. Okay, I hope this was helpful for homework and for studying.